joining this session. Thank you for being here. I think this is going to shape up to be a great week. It's good to see some faces here in the audience that we worked with in the past. Can you all hear me okay?
Yes.
Perfect. So, in the Air Force we do many things. We work on a ton of technologies and so on. But one of the things I wanted to focus on today is talk a little bit about dual-use technologies, because that's where our communities intersect, and that's where I think we can, we can work together to create really outsized outcomes for both the private sector and the department. And when I say that, I'm thinking 4 different areas, and I'm going to set them up now, so I want you guys to be thinking about those things, in the rest of your time here and also the rest of the session. We're going to be better at working with the private sector on technologies, ingesting technologies that you all develop. We're going to be better at ingesting best practices that you develop, because those technologies, those products that don't get created, it's not like a stork that delivers them, right? There's a process that companies, the private sector, engage in order to build products. The third piece is capital. So finding ways of increasing the relevance, the impact of private capital, be it venture or private equity, to our mission is one of the things that I want us to all think about. And then the final one is talent, because we know that it takes people to do all these things, and we know that, while we'll have many, many talented people inside the Department of Defense, there are many more people outside, and we'd like to be able to take advantage of that skill set for our mission. So, I'm going to talk a little bit about a couple of areas that I think are great for us to think about how we partner on. I have here 4 areas. So I have AI, I have autonomy, trusted microelectronics, as well as hypersonics. And because we don't have too much time and you don't want me up here blathering on forever, I'm going to talk about 2 of them, AI and autonomy. But again, I want you to be thinking about those opportunities for partnering across all dual-use technologies. Why does this matter? I'd just like to set up my view of why this matters. When I was growing up, when I was kind of the same age as you guys, it was the time of the Cold War. We were thinking about building space-based capabilities to defeat incoming ballistic missiles. Star Wars, it was a thing. If you look at how a defense industrial base was created and sustained during that time, you get the model that you have today. The trouble is today is not, we're not living in the Cold War time. Today we're living in this great power competition time. And what has not happened is we've not rejiggered our defense industrial base to deliver what we need in the time that we find ourselves today. So, this effort, what DIU is doing, what AFWERX is doing, what Naval X is doing, it's all part of the effort that we are very deliberate in undertaking in the Department of Defense to move our capabilities, our ways of working, so that we create an industrial base, a defense industrial base responsive to our needs for great power competition. And that defense industrial base is going to look very different than having a few big primes that are completely and utterly dedicated to the DoD. In my prognostication, in the future we will have an industrial base that is much more hybrid, where I would hope that it's commercial first and defense second, because we recognize that much more money has been invested outside the DoD than we are able to invest, and that's a great thing. There's nothing wrong with that at all. All we need to do is to change our game on the DoD side to be able to absorb that goodness, right? So, far into the future, I think we'll be relying on all of you. the companies that you represent, and those of you that will go on to start new companies, and those of you that will go on to fund these companies. We rely on you to create this hybrid industrial base that can see us through great power competition. One thing that I would say parenthetically, and this may come as a surprise to you, it certainly came as a surprise to me. If you look at the top 5 Chinese defense primes, the largest one amongst them is a company called AVIC. They do airplanes, of commercial as well as military airplanes. Only 37% of their revenue comes from the defense sector in China. And this is their largest company. If you take our largest company, actually if you take our top 5 primes, with the exception of Boeing, they are all in the high 90s with dependency on DoD. So it's a stark contrast with what our competitor is doing and how we are I guess, depending on an existing base. What is the difference? Well, all of you know the difference. I worked in the private sector most of my career. I know that the tempo that goes into developing a product. I know the. Let me do it this way. The tempo is different, and you all know what I mean. That urgency, that feedback loop that you have with the marketplace that keeps you on top of your tree, and either you're on top of your tree or you're on the floor and you don't matter anymore. I think that we don't have in the DoD. And we really need that, and we're going to get that through the partnerships that we're going to build with you. So this is all to say, this game is just getting started in many ways, and I hope that all of you here will be participants in creating the solution set that will get us to this hybrid industrial base, both on the innovation side, the funding side, the scaling side, and so on. So let's talk a little bit about AI. And Lord knows everybody's talking about AI today. What I wanted just to communicate here with you again are the areas, the priority areas as we currently see them. The department late last year published our AI strategy through our CDAO, the Chief Data and AI Office. And it's consistent with the overall national strategy in AI that was published by the White House a few weeks before that. This graphic here gives you kind of the lay of the land as as we think about how we go about building a robust AI kind of capability in the department that will last us for many years to come. And at the bottom of the pyramid, of course, is data. You all know that AI is only as good as the data mostly as good as the data that we pump it with. So we need to provide foundational data management as well as collection. We just need to be so much better at collecting data. So our new Vice Chief, Department of the Air Force, Jan Slife, he's been talking a lot about data this last few weeks. And those of you that read our trade rags, you will see how many times he spoke about data and the need to instrument our platforms. They need to pull that data, put it in places where it's accessible, where it can be processed, and so on. So that's one big piece. Emphasis on data governance, really important. Who does what to whom? What tools we use across the enterprise, and of course, then once you have your data and you have your tool sets, it's like what are you going to do with it? How are you going to analyze it? How are you going to create insights? Where are you going to apply them? And right on top there is like, how do you fundamentally use the kind of the insights, the capabilities that you're building on top of that pyramid for the mission in such a way that is consistent with norms, with our values as a society, within the legal framework of the United States, within the law of war. So these are all areas that we are working on, in some cases struggling with, because of course the mission of the department is very broad and very diverse. So if you look about responsible AI, it could be something that applies to a weapon system. It could be something that applies to the hiring decision that we make. It could be something that we apply to a promotion decision that we make. These things are not the same. And I say that because, whenever we speak about autonomy, for example, or AI in the DoD, people tend to think about killer robots. And honestly, if we're going to build killer robots, we're probably not going to build them with you. Just like, but there is so much more that AI needs to do for us, that even at an enterprise level, that we will not be the best of. We will be the best of breed there, and we're going to work with you. We're going to bring that in here. I was talking to Secretary Kendall just last Tuesday. We were talking about how do we. Because all of us share this frustration. I talked about these 4 pillars. How do you get there? There are always reasons why you can't succeed because you don't have production dollars. You have phone cycles about too long. And I was saying to him, look, I think we need to take a kind of a fresh look. Blank piece of paper. Let's figure out what is it that we would do in order to be able to create this kind of more hybrid industrial base, and just write kind of the rule book. And what he told me, I think, is interesting. He said, look, we buy a few of very big, very complicated things, and that just doesn't scale, doesn't work with the private sector. So he's both right and wrong, because yes, we do buy these extra things, and we will never buy them from a startup, but that's not the only thing we buy. We buy cloud, for example, and why on earth would we go and create our own cloud solution? We use data centers. Why would we create our own data centers? Right? There is a vast amount of technology that we will be, that we are reliant on, that you can help us with. Okay, so no killer robots, but cloud, please. Yes, please, help us with that. Let's see, so I wanted to just talk for a moment about a couple of things that we're working on in the department. One of them is the AI Hackathon series, Poly Bravo. We just had one in Hawaii, and I think some of you were there. I know it's a hard trip to turn down. I come to Hawaii for a couple of weeks, to geek out. Many people answered the call. We see those hackathons as a way, first of all, of making our problem set proximate to those of you that are outside the department, so that you know what it is that is challenging us, but also to give you a kind of an inside look into both the data sets, the tool sets, the impediments that we have in terms of classification levels and so on. So it's meant to be a place where, once in a while maybe some capability will be built, and that's an optional extra, but where we have the ability to expose our problem set and give you the opportunity to learn about us, and therefore be much more likely to create products that solve our problems. So that's one thing. The other thing that is much more nascent is thinking about how we counter bias in AI, in particular in data sets. So I talked a little bit about responsible AI earlier on. We are passionate about doing the very best that we can in order to create both training data sets, but then solutions on top of those training data sets that contain as little bias as possible. And I say that, and those of you that are in the business, that's an oxymoron, right? The whole thing about machine learning is that it encodes bias. That's what machine learning is. So here we are now trying to counter bias, but still get useful products out of it. So it might sound like an oxymoron, but actually it's eminently doable. What we're hoping to do is to actually engage the communities that are affected disproportionately by bias in AI, both in algorithms as well as LLMs, for example, to engage them in the solution set, because unless you are in the receiving end, of that bias, I don't think you really understand what problems you need to solve. I'm a firm believer in empowering communities that are affected by these issues to be part of the solution. So this is a collaboration between ourselves in the Air Force, the CDAO, the White House, OSTP, USDRNE, so it's a broad kind of government, cross-government initiative. There will be RFIs coming out probably in the next couple of months. There will be one for HPCUs because we want to include HPCUs in the solution set, and also to industry. So I would encourage you to look at those, give us your ideas, so that when we form this initiative and we go to fund it and figure out how we're actually going to execute it, we'll have the best kind of representation of the experience in the world. I have no idea how much time I'm taking, but I'm going to carry on here. I'm going to try and speed up a little bit. Autonomous systems and development of autonomous systems. So I'm going to do some hand waving here for a moment, but we've been working in autonomy in the DoD for almost as long as I remember. A lot of the innovations that you see, every time you drive your Tesla, right? So where did that come from? Actually, it came from DARPA, my previous agency. So when we used to have the DARPA challenges that created really the world's first, self-driving car. So we've been in this business for a long, long time. If, however, you go and look to see how much of that kind of innovation, that capability development actually is deployed today, you will not find a ton. So why is that? Well, because you don't go from having no autonomy to having full autonomy in one step. Nobody does that. So we'll talk a little bit about Tesla. So, to get to the level of autonomy that you enjoy in the latest Tesla today, hundreds of millions of miles were driven. Experience was created, problems were solved, bugs were fixed, new features were added. We understood how drivers interact with the autonomy. So, if you're driving around, you don't put your hands on the wheel. Once in a while, you're going to get a ping to put your hands back on the wheel. So we have a lot of experience that tells us how to incrementally deliver that capability in the platforms. In the DoD, for a long time, we felt that somehow magically we will go from whatever sits in the lab to something that flies in real life. I think we internalized that that's never going to happen. Earlier on, we were talking about innovation, and I said, like a good idea, like a good algorithm is like 10%. That the 90% is execution, and execution is boring, it's hard. But unless you do it, nothing else matters, right? So what we were fortunate enough to advocate for and to get funded is Project Venom. So Venom was funded at the tune of about $300 million last year. And what we're doing is we're hoping to create this kind of middle step where we are taking autonomy capability that's developed in the lab, we're deploying it in some jets, we're flying them, we'll learn what works, what doesn't work, and we rinse and repeat. And at the same time, we're also learning how to best marry up the human with the machine. So one of the things that also some of you may be tracking is the Air Force a year ago announced its first ever UARC, the University Affiliate Research Center, which is focused on tactical autonomy. And what we're asking them to do, and that actually is also an HPCU initiative, which we're very proud of. We asked them to work in 3 areas, one being trusted autonomy, because it doesn't matter how much you have in the lab, unless you trust it a little bit, you're never going to deploy it. So trusted autonomy is a key area of research for us. One-on-one interaction between a human and a synthetic agent is the other area. And the third area is many-on-many collaboration, collaborative autonomy. And you see, if you look at the slide here, you see why we're directing the UARC to work in that regard. We, we need, first of all, to be able to fly the jet. So how do we do that? We have now taken Air Force Base 6 F-16s. It's half a squadron. I wanted a squadron. I didn't get a full squadron, but one day we'll get there. 6 is better than 0. The jets are all modified, and those of you that are familiar with the ACE program at DARPA, so it's a continuation of that effort. So we're building, making hardware changes in the jets so that we can do multiple pole drops during the day, as opposed to like one every 6 months, which was our next best. And those of you that are in the business of developing code, you will know how impossible a task that is, right? So we drop the code in and then we fly them. And the things that we're learning are amazing. I mean, if I needed reinforcement of why Venom is such an important capability, our first flights really indicate that. So our next kind of area that I'm going to talk about is human in the cockpit. And what I want to say about that is, how do you optimize the human and the machine? But it goes way beyond that. So one of our first flights. So you fly a mission. You let the algorithm decide how to fly it, and it flies it really well. Except that for an hour and a half, that jet pulls 2.5 and 3.5 Gs. And those of you that have been in those environments, you know that no human being, no matter how good they are, they will be comfortable or happy in a jet that pulls constantly 2.5 and 3.5 Gs. So a human pilot would never fly that mission this way. Maybe the agent is flying it in a more kind of efficient, productive way, but no human being would ever tolerate that, right? So knowing that an algorithm is good enough doesn't mean that it's an algorithm that can be deployed and used. You have to do both at the same time so that the human can actually influence how do you adapt the algorithm so that they can work together. So obviously, for us, the F-16s are a kind of a stepping stone, and the other end, of that bridge, if you like, is going to be our CCAs, our collaborative combat aircraft that I'm sure many of you are tracking and are familiar with. Our goal is to create a fleet of over 1,000 of such CCAs. We are at a very early kind of stage of deciding what it will look like. We have some agreements already actually through USDRNE with our partners in Australia to experiment with the Northpat. Within the Air Force, we're working with a number of companies that have concepts. I think the important thing to note is that, again, you're not going to get to that capability, and maybe nobody in this room will ever build a CCA, but I can guarantee you that you'll be building a part of the autonomy capability that powers those CCAs, right? Eventually, they will be flying alongside our F-16s and our F-35s and our other next generation aircraft. So it's a brave new world. It's a brave new world not only because technology is so cool. It's also the case that our competition is advancing rapidly and perhaps more nimbly than we are. We all need to work together to create this vision where, again, working together is built in. It's not something that we try to slather on top, because we all know how difficult it is to do that. With that, I want to thank you and perhaps invite the rest of our colleagues here to join us.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you.